Hello everybody. The webinar will begin in 10 minutes. In the meantime, you may wish to perform an audio check. Please go to Tools in your toolbar, Audio, and Audio Setup Wizard. So that's Tools, Audio, and Audio Setup Wizard. Thank you. The webinar will begin in 3, 2, 1. Hello everybody, my name is Laura Sanchez and I'm your host today. Welcome to the Networks webinar Bridge to Technology. This webinar is being recorded and we will provide you with instructions on how to access the recording and slides as soon as they're available. And the webinar is brought to you by Maytech Networks. Networks is a part of Maytech, a member of the Division of Academic and Student Affairs at the Maricopa Community Colleges, and funded in part by a grant from the National Science Foundation. So let's get started. For this webinar, we're using a system called Illuminate. And if you're familiar with Illuminate, please raise your hand now. Okay, I see quite a few of you have used Illuminate, but there's a few of you who haven't before. So let me take you through a quick tour of some of the key features, and then we'll get started. So what you see in front of you is a screenshot of the Illuminate session. And that's right here. This is the whiteboard. This is where the presentation slides will be displayed. This is where you're going to be looking most of the time. And then we have the chat box. And the chat box is where you can type your questions and your comments, and when you write something, please be sure to send it to this room where you can select where you send it to so that everyone can follow the conversation. I'll be keeping track of any questions that we have so that we can address them as time permits and during the Q&A breaks throughout the webinar. Then up at the top, right here, we have the participants box. And this is a list of everyone who's logged into the webinar. Myself, I'm actually showing up as Laura Smith, and the presenters, and all of you are going to be listed right here in the participants box. You might notice you have colleagues or friends, and it's okay to send them a personal note, but just please be aware that the moderator and the presenters can see all of the comments that you type into that chat box. Another interactive feature that we have are the audience polls. And we'll be conducting a couple of polls today. When we do, you'll be asked to respond by clicking on the A, B, C, D, or E button located right here on the toolbar above the participants box. Finally, right below that, we have our emoticons, because we have to have emoticons, right? This is another way for you to interact with us. Feel free to use it throughout the presentation. Let us know how you're doing. And if you're asked to raise your hand again, you can do that by clicking on the hand and arrow button right next to the emoticons. So let's try these tools out and give our presenters, John and Rob, a round of applause. There we go. Okay. So our presenters today are John Carisi and Rob Young, both of City College of San Francisco. Thank you both for joining us today.
Hi there.
Rob, would you mind introducing John to us today, please?
Sure, no problem. So my co-presenter today is John Carisi, and as you can see on the screen, John is the director of the San Francisco Bay Center of Excellence here at my school, City College, San Francisco. And what John does is labor market analysis, and he provides job data to our school to ensure that we're training people for the jobs that are upcoming in the future. And I know John because we worked together on a synergy grant from the National Science Foundation, and that grant is to scale up the Bridge to Biotech program, the program that I work in, so that other schools can benefit from having a model that works and meets their student needs.
Great, thank you, Rob. And John, can you introduce Rob to us, please?
Sure, my pleasure. So Rob Young's an instructor in the Bridge to Biotechnology program at City College San Francisco. We've been teaching here at the college for about 9 years, and he's really done a lot to help our college pioneer what we call contextualized teaching and learning, where we're really combining basic skills, English instruction, and science content for underprepared students that are very interested in getting to our local biotech jobs in the area, but they're not quite ready to do it. And so we'll talk a lot about this bridge model, and Rob's really a pioneer in creating it and making it successful. As you heard, we work currently together on a National Science Foundation project. There's a couple folks on the webinar that are part of that group, and we'll talk about that project a little bit today. And Rob also is a consultant with the Career Ladders Project. That's an organization in California that's dedicated to creating career pathways for students and workers using many of the bridge concepts that we're going to talk about today. So it's a pleasure to introduce him and to be presenting with him today.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
So,
and yeah, Rob, are you going to get us started?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. So I wanted to first start with an audience poll. I saw we got emailed a list of all the attendees, and so I know sort of where you guys are coming from, but we'd love to know a little bit more. So in the chat box, I'd love for all the attendees to type the name of the institution they work in, the discipline they work in, and the level of expertise with bridge programs. The last question was not on the information that we got. Do you currently run a bridge program? Are you interested in forming one? Have you had one for 20 years and it's going successfully? Have you had one for 5 years and it's going well, but there are some issues that you'd like to get resolved, and that's why you're consulting the community of practice and that's why you're on the webinar. So I also noticed that the sound is low on my end. Okay. Is that better? Okay. I noticed from what we got emailed from the Maytech that we have people from all different types of disciplines. We have people from civil engineering, Department of Agriculture, IT, physics, business, technology, chemistry, biochem, computers, electronics, communications, all different types. And we also have lots of people who are faculty, but lots of people who are directors, consultants, deans, research assistants, lab techs. I guess I'm sort of doing the work for you guys. I see that the comments, audience poll answers are coming in slowly. And I also noticed that well. Audio trouble. Really? Laura, can you hear me at all?
Hey, Rob, I can hear you. I think they just can't hear you very well through the webinar.
Oh, okay. John, how about you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can do with volume, but yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, Jeff's saying that's better now. Let's take a poll.
Okay.
If you can hear Rob okay, give us a smiley face, please. Okay.
Oh, good. Thank you. It seems like we're okay.
All right. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for chiming in and telling us where you come from and your discipline level of expertise. I didn't get a whole lot of level of expertise in the chat box, so you guys continue to do that as we go to the next slide. So let's get started. So I titled our presentation, Bridge Programs Improve Retention, Motivation, and Success. And that's basically what we're looking at here. I think I'm going to build the case for the fact that a lot of traditional basic skills education could improve in retention, motivation, and success. And we'll talk about that and how bridge models can really help alleviate those problems. So I'd like to break down the objectives here. And so objective number one, we're going to look at goals for college completion in the job market, since John Carice's specialty is job market analysis. Is going to provide some data for you guys about what type of jobs are going to be the jobs of the future, the near future. So and how bridge models can really address those job market needs. The second objective here, we're going to look at how bridge models address the barriers to these goals. We'll briefly discuss barriers, and I think that part's going to be quite familiar to you guys. But I'd like to really work hard in the beginning to build the case for a bridge model, because it takes a good deal of work, and so why should you do this extra work to create a bridge model is the big question that I'm answering. And then objective three, we will look at various bridge programs, probably 4 or 5, and then go in depth on one, the one that of course I know best, which is the bridge program at City College, the Bridge to Biotech program. And lastly, objective number 4, we're going to end with challenges, because we're doing something a little out of the box, a little less traditional, so it wouldn't be fair if we just talked about all the good stuff. This is hard work, and there's some challenges here, and John will be covering some of those, and so will I. So with those objectives in mind, I'd like to turn it over to John and have him talk about the job market.
Great. Thanks, Rob. So as you can see on this slide, there's some quotes, and really it relates to the current challenge we're facing in the United States around the number of basically supply and demand of college graduates, and where do we have enough of skilled workers for the jobs that are open. So the President has set some pretty big goals around this. The first 2 quotes are coming out of the Obama administration. You can see that the President by 2020 wants America to have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world. Again, we're not there now. And to produce an additional 5 million graduates by 2020. You can see the quote from the Gates Foundation. I won't read that to you. But these are big goals because it's really a big challenge in front of us. We have a different economy now than we did 30 years ago, and there's a premium on getting a college education, because that's what's required really for the jobs that are open now and will continue to be open in the future. So we're going to take a little deeper look into that right now in this next slide. A lot of you probably have heard of this term, Middleskill Jobs. That's really defined most commonly as having more than a job that requires more than a high school degree, but less than a 4-year degree. A lot of research has been done on a number of studies. I'll share a couple of them with you this morning that say that the largest job growth going forward in the United States is going to be in these middle skill jobs. Unfortunately for us right now, there's a critical shortage in the number of students that have degrees, those kind of middle skill education requirements. That's really what community colleges do, kind of certificates and 2-year degrees. And we're facing a critical shortage in many industries of workers, students coming out, or workers that have the right education and skill requirements to fill those middle skill jobs. So I'm going to talk about one study right now. It comes out of Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. It was done very recently within the last year, and it shows that by 2018, we'll need approximately 22 million new college graduates. But we're going to, in order to fill the available jobs that are open with that, where a college degree is required, but we're going to fall short of that number by at least 3 million is the prediction from the Georgetown Center. And in addition, we'll probably need another 4 to 5 million new workers that have what we would call a certificate. So even less than a degree, there's going to be another 4 to 5 million workers that would need education and training equivalent to a certificate. Again, another thing that community colleges do well and do a lot of. So that's a big challenge, and we have to kind of think about how we're going to approach this and attack this, I think, in the community college and education world, and really nationally. It's a national priority. So you can see the Georgetown study there is the first link. Rob, you're really good with the underliner. Could you underline that for me? Or someone. Yeah, thanks. That's the Georgetown study there, if you're interested in that. The second study I'll talk about is from the National Skills Coalition. And actually, if you go to that link, you'll find a page or a fact sheet on your state. So if you're in the U.S., they've done it for all 50 states. There's a fact sheet that will look at this, how your state is doing. Basically, it's a report card on, is there a skills mismatch in your state? And so I'll just give you an example from this study that was done by the National Skills Coalition for California. So they found in 2009 about 47% of California's jobs are in these middle skill occupations, but only 38% of the state's workers had the right training and education to fill those jobs. So that's a 9-10% gap, and that's a big problem and a big challenge. So our belief in our premise here this morning, and you'll hear Rob talk a lot about this, is that bridge programs can really play an important role and a significant role in meeting the challenge that I just described by helping to produce more college graduates with the skills we need for the jobs that are open and in demand. A lot of it is getting underprepared students through the pipeline and into the right classes, gateway classes sometimes they're called, that allow them to complete a degree or certificate. But they've got to get through that first kind of hurdle, if they're underprepared, and bridge programs really help them a lot and accelerate their process a lot. So the last thing on this slide I just want to share with you is the little blue link at the bottom, and it says Information and Communications Technologies. That's a website where all of our labor market research and workforce research reports are posted. coeccc.net is Center of Excellence California Community Colleges. That's the work that I do. And if you go to that link, /ICT, you'll see a series of reports we've done in California on the information and communications technology sector. And essentially it's highlighting what I just described, that there's a real mismatch, kind of a skills mismatch out there between what colleges in California are supplying as far as degrees, the kinds of workers we're producing, and the skills we're teaching them is misaligned or mismatched, really, both in terms of supply, not enough, and also the kinds of skills we're teaching are not really aligned with what employers want. And so that's an interesting case study to look at, or a series of reports to look at in one specific sector. So our recommendation is that our colleges in California really need to do a better job of figuring out what industry needs and aligning our curriculum to teach that, but also to produce more graduates with the right skills, because IT is really growing rapidly, ICT is growing rapidly, and we're just not producing enough graduates to fill the jobs. So with that, actually, that's kind of a quick crash course in labor market information and analysis. And with that, I'll hand it back to Rob, and he'll talk a little bit about what barriers exist.
Thanks, John. Interesting stuff. I think for the audience members, it's not necessarily new stuff, but it's always nice to hear that there's an opportunity for us to train people to meet the need. And this opportunity that presents itself also has barriers. So when we think of those job goals that John just talked about, I'm posing a question to you guys, and I'd love for the audience members to type it in the chat box to the left. What barriers do you believe exist in meeting the goals of college completion? You can speak specifically about your school. When you think of students in your classes, maybe they come in with the motivation of getting a certain certificate or degree and they don't finish. These are barriers to their completion. Or maybe they come in with lack of motivation but have all the skills. What's the barrier there? So I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll take a look at the chat box now and see income. Yes, so Shannon Payne came up with income. Yes, certainly. For Jeff Rapp says, hi Jeff. Laboratory math deficiencies are an impediment to passing gatekeeper chemistry course. Great, so that's a basic skills issue, or a little bit above basic skills, maybe pre-collegiate. Mike Wasecki, disillusionment of taking math when I wanted to study chemistry. Yeah, right. Not seeing the connection that math and chemistry connect, and you need both to do chemistry well. Tracy says, why all the math? I don't understand why I have to take math. Industry needs to get more involved with academic programs so that we instructors know what they need, right? So, good. We're going to talk about some of that later today. Ron says, extensive numbers of students lack academic skills needed to perform college-level coursework. Right, so coming in unprepared. Great. Those are all common barriers, barriers that we at City College have faced as well. So if I could just switch to the next slide, we have, these are the biggest barriers that we came up with. They're common ones that I hear people talk about in conferences and when I talk to other teachers in other schools. Attrition, of course. We lose a lot of students throughout the semester for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about them coming up soon. Completion, right? So, I'm so disappointed at students who have potential and come and do well in the beginning of the semester, and they just don't pass the course at the end because they don't follow through, and there's a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about how bridge programs can help address this issue. Persistence, right? So once they graduate from our program, even if they do well, do they come back the next semester? We lose students that way, and there's been a lot of talk in California about acceleration, probably in your states as well, and making the program sequences shorter so that we don't have this bleed off of students from semester to semester. And collaboration. I mean, I think when we see the word collaboration, we think, great, I'd love to work with somebody else, but it's actually difficult and it's challenging to work in an interdisciplinary way where math is working with the CTE courses or basic skills, English working with CTE, and also, of course, funding. If we're talking about doing something outside of the box, who's going to pay for it? If it takes extra time and money, we're already fairly strapped for that. So those are some of the big barriers. I think they're familiar to you guys. I just wanted to address them briefly. And so I wanted to expand on just two of these and pose a question to you guys. And this question is at the top of the slide here. So is traditional remediation a success? And this is a study, if I could point you to the bottom of the slide where I'm highlighting, done by the CCC, stands for California Community College. Some of the California Community College Chancellor's Office, and they found, if we go back up to the top here, 84% of community college students are placed into remedial math. So a huge portion of our students, and it's probably true for you guys out there as well, a huge portion of our students need remediation. They're not quite ready. And only 10% This is an abysmal number. Successfully make it to college level math. This is transfer level math, right? This is a sad statistic that makes a lot of us feel that we need changes. We need something to happen. And then the next statistic here, 72%, this is about English over here, if I could highlight English for you guys, 72% of community college students are placing their remedial in English, and they have a greater chance of making it to transfer level English. But still 25% is not enough. If we look at the labor market statistics that John is talking about, this is a group of people who should be there. And so what is it about their needs that we're not meeting? And what is it about our system that's not quite working? And so I'd love to have you guys react to this in the chat box. You can have a discussion about this. I see that Phil Gibson chimed in and said this is because of the current idea of remedial math. And Phil says it's not contextual. Yes, and I'll talk about that as we come up to Phil Gibson is part of our Scale Up program, and so is Jeff Rapp and Andrea Goldfein. They're in the audience out there somewhere. So I'll talk about this as well, what Phil is addressing there. So yes, I think if you guys could comment in the chat box, is this the same situation in your state, at your school? And I think if I answer my question at the top here, is traditional remediation a success? The answer in California, from what I'm hearing, is a resounding no, it's not a success. So what can we do about this? How do bridge programs address this issue? Next, I'd like to talk about the sequences and attrition. There's been a lot of talk in California about how the sequences are just too long. The students leave, even if they pass. So my question that this study posed, and I thought I cited it at the bottom. Anyway, yes, so someone says, why is transfer considered the holy grail? Great question. With our program, certificates are an equal holy grail to transfer. Not everybody needs to transfer. I'm glad you're asking that question. So how many of 100 students, the top here, who start 3 levels below college, actually pass the college level course? So if we start with 100 and 75% right here pass the course, then we have 75. But only 75% of those who pass from here, right, re-enroll and take the next course. So we have 56. So immediately from the first course to the second, we're down from 100, we're down to 56. And if we follow this pattern along, 75% of them pass the second course. We're down to 42 here, right? And then 75% of those enroll on the next level. We're at 32. 75% pass the third course. We're at 24. 75% enroll in the next college level. We're at 18. And then 75% finally pass the college level course. And we're left with 13 students, which is a horrible amount. So, sure, we can look at what's happening in each one of these courses and try and figure out if we can make the pass rate higher. But I think what a lot of the talk has been is how do we make this whole sequence shorter? And how do we accelerate their progress so we don't lose students in between semesters and so that we can get them to what they want to do faster? So I'd like to talk a little bit more specifically about some barriers before we launch into looking at some bridge programs, because I'm trying to build the case that bridge programs address all of these problems with traditional remediation and basic skills education. So just specifically at our school, we have this picture here that I'd like you to look at. So in the picture, we have a lot of adults, maybe in their 50s and 60s, some 40s here, working hard on computers. And at our school, we have adult learners with low basic skills who are failing certificate courses in high numbers in comparison to younger students who just graduated from college, or just graduated from high school, or students with previous college education. So they couldn't really compete with the other students. And so I wanted to, after we have looked at all these barriers to graduation and completion, I'd like to look at how bridge programs address these barriers. So is there a slide missing here? Hold on a second. Okay. Not in the order that I thought, but that's okay. Okay, so some things are a little out of order here. Well, we'll talk about this one since it's here. Some of the main reasons for these barriers, these should look familiar to you guys. Sometimes students report to me that the concepts are abstract and academic, and they don't see connections between subjects. Someone else wrote in the chat box earlier that they don't understand why they have to take math if they want to chemistry major, and they don't see the connections between them. And sometimes the math teacher can't tell the classroom, all the students in the class, how math will help them with chemistry, because the class is not a cohort of students that is focused on one job goal or one certificate goal, right? It could be a wide variety of disciplines within that classroom. So that's one reason. Lack of basic skills foundation. This is widely established. We've already talked about this a little bit. Also, students are never taught how to study. They're given lots of assignments, but oftentimes they're not given instruction on how to do the assignment in academic study skills. There's also sometimes a gap between content and students' existing knowledge. So they view what they're learning as something academic and not related to what they know. They don't have a schema to build on. And also sometimes the rationale of assignments is unknown to students. They might not know why they're doing what they're doing. And so I bring these up because they're common complaints of students, and bridge programs address all of these quite well. So I'm repeating myself here. How do bridge programs address these barriers? So in bridge programs, the one major thing that I'd like to put a big purple mark next to this one, academic support is infused into each lesson. So oftentimes what you'll see, and in my studies of other bridge programs, there's integrated or linked curriculum. So for example, math for science or writing for engineering. And the basic skills math or English teacher or ESL teacher teaches how to do the assignments in the target class. So for example, students keep laboratory notebooks in a science class, and the English teacher or ESL teacher teaches them how to write protocols, interpret data, write conclusions to experiments using the content from that week's science class. And we can look at more specifics on that when we come up to the Bridge to Biotech program later. With professional development, we have a lot of bridge programs that have career exploration, where in my class specifically, students are giving presentations on careers. So they're not only building presentation skills, they are exploring careers and hearing about 20 different careers from their classmates. Other professional developments that fall into the career counseling category are reading job announcements and plotting a course to qualification by using the college catalog. It's not writing an ed plan. We teachers can't write ed plans. The counselors have to do that. But we can do lots of career exploration activities, writing resumes and cover letters, researching companies, narrowing field of interest, and teaching students to network and find their own internships. We also, a lot of bridge programs have non-academic support. For example, support with time management, financial aid. We got a lot of veterans coming in, and we're trying to recruit lots from them because we have a lot of people coming back, as you guys know, who need a career and need to get back on their feet. So we have counselors who work with them with the GI Bill qualifications and other assistance. And also another big component of bridge programs is down here. As we talked about, they address the needs of basic skills of pre-collegiate students by teaching basic skills with the content often of their target goal. Not a general uncontextualized basic skills class, but basic skills with computer technology infused. So those are some big characteristics of bridge programs. And I think these are how bridge programs address barriers related to the curriculum. So oftentimes we have four more main characteristics of bridge programs. Here at the top, bridge programs connect the points on a career ladder, right? Not necessarily to an academic degree. Someone else brought up the idea that why is transfer the holy grail? And this is addressing that. Bridge programs connect the points so that students can get a certificate, enter the workforce, come back for retraining, go back and forth. The curriculum is often contextualized, and I'll talk about that later. It's a common component. I'll introduce a research study that proves that contextualized classes improve motivation and success. And then here, learning assessments are project-based. I think you guys would assume that. And industry certification articulates with academic degrees. So yes, transfer is not the holy grail, but what if someone wants to complete a certificate and later come back and transfer? Oftentimes bridge programs not only enable someone to get 1 year or 2 years of education and go into the workforce, but maybe come back and use what they've use the credits they've got in the Bridge program to apply for an AS or a higher degree. Okay, so with that, I'd like to pause, and I think, Laura, are you going to take this part, or do you want me to?
Sure. So if anybody has any questions for Rob before we move on, please type it into the chat box. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for everybody to type in their questions, Rob, I've collected a couple that people had so far, if you don't mind me asking you.
Sure.
So the first question was asked when we were talking about job growth. You mentioned middle-skill jobs make up the largest segment of job growth in the United States. And the question was raised, does middle-skill degree equals a 2-year degree or just any advanced beyond high school?
I was.
John, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll say that. So I mean, we're really when we say degree, we're talking about a 2-year community college degree or an AS degree. Is that what you think the person's asking? Okay.
Yep. So anything that's at least a 2-year degree. How about certificates? Would they?
Certificates, at least in California, range quite a bit. We have very short-term certificates that could be, just a few units, 6. Rob, we go 6, 12-unit certificates sometimes. Maybe not 6, but 12-unit, 18-unit certificates. And others that are much longer than that. So there's a range, I think, with certificates, and probably each state has their own, situation with that. But they're focused on usually a specific skill area. It may be linked to an industry certification of some kind, whether it's in, in the construction trades or IT or healthcare or whatever. But it's something less than a 2-year degree.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk briefly about that. I think we're going to hit on it later, but it's a good question. How long does someone need to go to school to get these middle skill jobs? And the Ijust program in Washington, which you guys might have heard of, is based on tipping point research, and I'll talk about it more later. And it says that the tipping point for someone to get education, go into the labor market, and get a job where they can actually advance and be paid well, and not have to come back to school or not, make significant wage gains is actually a year. And so what they're saying is that they've studied programs that are shorter than a year and found that oftentimes they don't address the basic skill issues in conjunction with CTE, right? And so they're pointing towards some of the welfare to work programs that may be 6-week quick training, 8 weeks, maybe even 4 months. And they say that, yes, that can get someone back to work, but it's not addressing the fact that they're not going to be making significant wage gains, and they're not sort of moving out of poverty in some of these situations. So I'll talk about that later, but I think to get these middle skill jobs, we're talking about a year or 2 years, but not more generally.
Okay. All right, let's do a couple more questions here. Mike is asking, are bridge programs available for any special type of funding from agencies or foundations?
I can talk from our perspective. We got funding from the National Science Foundation to develop our program and to scale it up to make sure that it's something that is beneficial to more than just the San Francisco population. And so we got significant funding to start. So yes, there is funding from the National Science Foundation, and sometimes other sources, the Department of Labor, sometimes. Maybe, I think, I'm an instructor, and so I know about some of this, but I would imagine our audience might be able to chime into the chat box and tell us possible funding sources as well. So if you guys could chime in and help me with that question, that'd be great. But I would say yes, there are funding sources out there because, your college, at least my college, is unlikely to put out lots of money for big innovations like this. So innovators often have to look elsewhere. And we also, one last thing, we also have funding from the Bay Area Workforce Funding Collaborative. So they're a funding collaborative that has money to give out in forms of grants to help train workers to meet workforce needs. So there could be local agencies in your area that are like that as well.
Okay, great, thank you. We have a couple more questions here that I'm actually going to save for the sake of time, but Rob, I'm going to turn it back over to you so you can move on to bridge models.
Sure, great. Okay, so I want to talk about a few models here, and I was going to ask you guys what models you know about before I gave away my list, but here it is anyways. I think maybe you guys can raise your hand if you've heard of Ijust. Ijust is a very common, popular program that people have talked about. Lots of research has been done about it. Good, we have one. The next program is Queda and Salud, which is, of course, is training Spanish speakers to work in healthcare professions. And also, I'm going to talk briefly about Digital Bridge Academy, which has changed its name a little bit. I'm going to talk about Fast Start at CCD, which is Community College of Denver. And lastly, I'll talk about Bridge to Biotech. And I think all these programs do things a little bit differently, so it's nice to look at different models to see what they do. And in some places in this next section of the webinar, I'll be presenting some of the data that prove that the worth of these programs, and that's, I think, particularly impactful. So let's first look at Ijust. So we have a quote from Obama you can read on your own time. I want to look over here more. I talked about the tipping point research, and just to clarify that, the tipping point research says that workers with 1 year of college and a certificate or a credential earn substantially more than those with less and are higher in demand in the workforce. And also short-term training such as less than 1 year, such as offered by welfare recipients, may help them get a job into the job market, but does not help them advance beyond low-paying jobs and does not address the lack of basic skills. So what they're saying is that only those students who took basic skills courses concurrently with vocational training enjoyed a significant benefit in rates of employment and earnings. So if we think we're just going to address the CTE component of our students, we're not going to be able to advance them as quickly as if we address basic skills along with CTE. So to go back to Ijust here, they're bridging into a certificate or degree program. They pay in a unique way, so they have an equal overlap for instructional time required to qualify for 1.75 FTE reimbursement. So it's kind of interesting the way they do this. They team teach. Oftentimes the instructors in the classroom at the same time, the basic skills and content instruction, and they're sharing instruction 50% of the time. So it's 50-50 with basic skills and CTE at the same time. So I'd like to also talk about Queda and Salud, which is a bilingual CNA program and an LPN program. They're working on an RN program down here. And the significant thing about their program is that the graduates have doubled their salaries and have an average salary of $40K. So as you can imagine from the title, they're looking for Spanish-speaking GED or high school graduates in the Chicago area. They have 7 levels, which is quite a bit for a bridge program, and they're each to be completed in 16 weeks. So they're 4-month programs, right? It's about the same as our semester, so probably similar to some of your schools out there. Laura just posted the website address in the chat box if you guys want to look up more about Queda and Salud. So I was intrigued by the 7 levels they have, and you can test into higher levels, which is great because if you just start a bridge program and you have everybody in the same class, you have the issue of having a very multi-level class. So I think also I'm intrigued by the fact that they must have a lot of students in their program to be able to have 7 levels and have teachers to have 7 levels going on at the same time. So this is intriguing to me. We'll take a brief look at Shifting Gears. This is launched by the Joyce Foundation. It's in the Midwest. There are similar goals to other places, other bridge programs, improve post-secondary options for lower skilled and working adults. It's automotive, okay? You know, the name Shifting Gears, okay? Makes sense with automotive. They're looking at embedding developmental math in collaboration with the math faculty. And so that's Shifting Gears in Indiana. Here's a rubric for their sort of a flow chart for their program model. At the bottom here we're starting with, of course, assessment. Here's their bridge program right here. And then they can go into a semi-skilled job or an entry-level job from there. But here we're talking about how the bridge program really bridges them into technical certificates above, and they can go back and forth between the workforce and higher level degrees if they want to. So that's their program. Fast Start is CCD, Community College of Denver, based on the jobs, based on data from the Jobs for the Future grant. Jobs for the Future is sort of a national organization that's looking to do workforce development. They're growing in size. They just had a really huge. They're doing huge work in Texas. Those of you, I saw some people that are from Texas on the information about the attendees, so maybe you guys know about Jobs for the Future. They're looking to bridge math, reading, and English skills to students, to college levels of these courses. And they have a lot of career exploration and educational planning in their courses, which are great things to add because it motivates students to have a goal. Of course, we know that. And so I think what's compelling about Fast Start is their data. So for the attendees out there, I'd love for you to sort of scan through this box. We have key outcomes on this side, of course. We have Fast Start over here and a comparison group over here. If you could scan through the numbers real quick, what really pops out to you guys as far as something powerful and impactful from the Fast Start data? If you guys could type it in the chat box, that'd be great. I'll give you guys a hint. There's always a little bit of lag time for typing in the still enrolled. Michael Secchi comes up with still enrolled. So let's look at that. Where is that in here? Still enrolled? Yes, right here. 28.3% versus 14.8%. So that's double, right? And so that's a significant thing. And Laura Smith says, wow, college math gatekeeper course up here at the top. We have the comparison group, only 49% passed all developmental education, math, college readiness, and 71% of the Fast Start group passed. So there's significant data showing that the Fast Start group is making gains faster than the comparison group. So briefly, I said we'd look at Digital Bridge. This is Academy of College Excellence. It's at Cabrillo College down near Santa Cruz in California. This program is unique in that it starts with a 2-week foundation course on learning styles and communication skills. So they're diving into how do we learn? How do I learn? How am I different from somebody else and how they learn, which is unique and new to a lot of community college students. And another unique thing is down here at the bottom, they use the social justice curriculum to engage high-risk students in the learning process through analysis of meaningful social issues. I think this may be the first time that some of them have really been spoken to as far as any type of social injustice has been done to them. Especially if we're looking at high-risk students. High-risk students, we can, I think, assume that they tend to be more minority students, more underrepresented students, and so to have, I think the social justice curriculum really speaks to their life context and situation. So this is a successful program as well. It used to be just Digital Bridge, but as you can see now, they've broadened it to more than just Digital Bridge. And then, so finally, not finally because we have a lot to go still, but I'd like to talk about our program. This is what I can speak to most, much more than the other programs. This is Bridge to Biotech. So we have, this is basically Bridge right here, even though it says Biotech Laboratory Assistant Certificate. It's an entryway for students without any scientific background. If they have college education, they go this way into the gateway courses, right? But they come to us for our Bridge program, and we can bring them to here and bridge them across this. This would be sort of like the skills gap, right? So I'd like to expand on what's in this box right here. What do we do here? And in the Bridge to Biotech program, it's 2 semesters. So we have below the dotted line here is the 2nd semester. We have a math class, we have a language class, we have an introduction to science class, and if we could put a line here and say everything to the right of this line is optional. We teach lab skills and networking. So we're having students, this is an internship program, we're having students find their own internships. We've found that saying report to here for an interview and see how it goes, let me know what you think, is not that helpful for students. So we're teaching them to network and find their own find their own internships. The second semester they take some FDA compliance classes, and they also complete their internship, and they take a class that supports them and gives them credit for the internship class. So that's briefly what our program is, and I'll go into more depth about, of course, these classes and how they help. Basically, the math class supports the science class, and the language class supports the science class, with this being the target goal here. Here's some data from our program. I wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk about some of the data here. We have 82% retention, 83% persistence. Graduates take twice as many units and stay in school three times longer. And then here's some completion data. As far as certificates, Bridge graduates complete twice as many biotech certificates as non-Bridge graduates, and 40% of interns are hired by mentors after their internships. So there's one more slide of data here. This is significant as well. So we're preparing them for, of course, industry needs, but also for academic career. And we have 75. Okay, so in the gateway courses after they come to us, 77% pass, while 50% of non-Bridge students fail. So we're preparing them quite well for not only vocational training, but an academic career too. We have significant gains for minorities are listed here, and more minority gains here. Twice as many Filipino and Latino Bridge students pass. So we're doing quite well. We have room to improve as well, but I wanted to show you the data because all the persistence and success barriers that I talked about in the beginning of this webinar are often clearly addressed by Bridge programs. So I think we'd like to take a little bit of time to pause here for any questions that you guys might have.
Yes, we have a couple questions actually for you gentlemen. The first one was from a student who asked, do any of the Bridge programs that you talked about today employ online or distant learning content presentation within classroom format?
So ours doesn't. So it's Bridge to Biotech. The students really need to be doing hands-on work, and I think I don't know if the other ones do or not, but my guess is that if you're looking at low basic skill students and at-risk students, oftentimes an online course is not going to grab them and be as engaging as having them right there in class where you can react to their needs. But I'd be interested to know, maybe some of you audience members out there can report in the chat box whether you know of any Bridge programs that have online components. I think my gut reaction is that online courses are better for students who are self-motivated, and our Bridge students tend to be less self-motivated. So I'd love to hear from you guys out there. Laura, are there other questions?
Yes, there are. I have another one from a student who asks, what is the best way to convince administrators that the resources and effort to start these programs is worth it?
Yeah, I think presenting the data, the slides here on the data, you could take the slide out and show them the slide. I'm going to present some other data about contextualized courses done by the California Community College State Chancellor's Office. And I think the data really shows that the models, some of the traditional models are not working very well. And so I think that's compelling. And that's what really, Michael Secchi commented here as stunning as far as after he looked at the data here. So I would say data for me is convincing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I think that's it, so go ahead, Rob.
Okay, thank you. So a couple more things before I turn it over to John John's going to talk about challenges in a little while, but I wanted to talk about one common element to a lot of Bridge programs, and that is contextualized teaching and learning, and for us, the major motivator. And when I say contextualized teaching and learning, here's some, let me back up just a little bit. A lot of what Bridge programs do is they establish learning communities where a cohort of students is going through at the same time taking 2 or 3 classes together. And linked courses, which means that the content of 2 courses is combined together. And here are some examples from our program. Students learn math that aids them in that week's biology class. And also students learn job search skills in the language class using content from a biology class. So they're seeing the connections between a lot of different subjects, and they're seeing how math works with chemistry or math works with biology, and sort of finding connections between related subjects. They're not, I shouldn't say finding, the teachers forcing them to make those connections. Briefly, I want to talk about some research that's been done about what's called CTL, or contextualized teaching and learning. So this was done, and it compares students in contextual math compared to students in standard math. So what I mean here is that students in a math class that's math for engineering or math for computer science. That is not my field, so I don't know how much math there is for computer science, but I think you get the idea here. Or English for, this is not, the study is just math, but we're talking about English for, it could be English for allied health or things like that. So this was done by Chuck Wisney. You can find his dissertation online. This is his dissertation, of course. He works for the Chancellor's Office, and it's for California community colleges, underlining that at the bottom there. 327% more likely to pass a contextualized course versus, of course, this standard math course. 387% more likely to pass degree applicable coursework in the same semester. So this is not necessarily another math course. It's just other degree applicable coursework in that semester. 400% more likely to pass transfer level course in the same semester. And then if we draw a line here, after this we're talking about the subsequent semester. And there are some gains to the subsequent semester, but not as significant as this part in the same semester. So this was done, he looked at thousands and thousands of student records and thousands of courses. We have 121 community colleges in California, lots of data. So I don't think anyone can say that this is a study that was just done with a small population. It's not valid for larger context. So and that was pretty powerful as far as proving the case for contextualized teaching and learning, which is a major component of a bridge program. Another major motivator is our internship program. A lot of bridge programs have internships. So in ours, students are doing 180 hours, unfortunately unpaid, and we placed 50 interns. A lot of these were hired, but many who were not hired returned to school, and it just missed some of our internship locations. And I think I'd rather talk, instead of the structure, I'd rather talk about the benefits. And I think a lot of them are far more motivated after doing an internship. They come back and often say to me, Rob, that stuff we learned, I'm doing it. And to me it's like, well, no duh, of course you're doing it. But for them, I think sometimes they feel like, well, this is an academic class. I don't really know why I'm learning this. And then we have a context for it and they apply it and they feel like, hey, I know why I did all that earlier because I'm doing it on the job and they're having me do stuff that I studied. Also career clarity and direction, enhanced employability. We have students sometimes who have limited work experience, and so to put an internship on their resume means that they're going to be more desirable in the job market. Vocational maturity is here as well. Network building, right, number 4 here. And we have a lot of students who, after an internship, say, you know what, I like what I did in my internship, but I found out that that person sitting next to me who's one level above me went to school for a year longer than I did and has a way better job and gets paid better. And I'm going to come back to school and I'm going to continue going to school and get myself a more secure job, a more diverse, interesting job as well. So you can, I don't have time to show the video, but you have a video here about one of our internship mentors. He's a former graduate, and he's discussing the benefits of internships, which I think are fairly clear for most of us, but if it's something you want to convince somebody else about, this is a great video to look at. And so here, I'd like to show you a student video because I've been talking about the benefits of bridge programs quite a bit, but we have a student perspectives video that Laura's setting up here.
And for those of you who are watching, you may need to press play yourself to hear it.
I embarked upon the journey of biotechnology by enrolling to the bridge.
This is just a whole different learning environment than I've ever experienced before. It has me basically on the edge of my seat.
The biology being the core, I would say, of the program, but the English and the math both addressing exactly what's being taught that week in the biology class.
It teaches you the language, it teaches you the discipline, it teaches you the math.
Each of these three courses are pretty much related into completing this biotech program.
In the math class, just recently, he gave us these problems that dealt with formula, making buffers and making different things for our science class. Even before we went into the science class.
The English class would work on the vocabulary, mitosis, meiosis, all the different phases, help you drawing, sketching.
You got to write essays for biology.
Being able to apply it to what I'm doing makes it that much more interesting.
I am actually only in my 7th week of this class, and I've learned more about lab equipment and what to do in a laboratory than I had in, again, previous science classes.
To me, that's a very complete process.
I can take this math and relate it to something that we're doing in the lab class, and this is what I want to do, and I'm getting it too. That's very empowering.
It's giving me the self-confidence that I really needed to kind of get to that point. Makes learning even one course more enhanced because I'm learning more through the other courses.
You want to know this. You want to be an expert.
It was easier. I'm going to go out on a leave here, but it actually made it very fun. And it was fun.
That helps to store in your long-term memory bank.
For example, when I'm cooking at home, I can actually see how it works. How that math lesson 2 days ago makes sense. Is my brain making those connections finally? It has to be to the bridge.
If there were more programs that did that, then you'd have a lot more people being successful.
The retention says it all. I mean, I can hold it and I can use it every day.
Seeing the same people in every class that you took.
All registered for the classes together.
Everybody are taking the same path.
You lose a lot of the shyness.
It gives me a lot of motivation, a lot of encouragement.
I think that's a real plus for all of us as students.
Somebody to study with was something new for me. You know, that was new.
Absolutely, my math skills have improved 100-fold.
I'm like going through math like a breeze.
Very, excited to actually write a conclusion.
I'm not afraid to go out and look and ask questions and do the work.
Started me on this path of going to school. Wow, I'm actually going to school.
Every day I'm excited about going to school.
And I feel that much more empowered now.
I feel like, yeah! You know, I got it under my belt. I turned in work early.
Some of the best decisions I've ever made.
I went from, let me try it out, see what this leads to, hey, why not a master's in biotech?
The interest level has just peaked so much that I would like to continue to a 4-year college.
This is a class, a new class, I want to be there and I want to take it.
My goal is to go as far as I can with this. And if that means, master's or PhD, that's what I'm going to do.
Continuing taking classes.
Propel me to want to even, get an AA and a BA and, even go further. I'm going to continue until, just continue and continue and continue.
There is nothing that could compare to when that light finally comes on, that bulb comes on in a student's head. He said, I got it, and he smiled. He said, oh, that's how it works.
Okay, so I think the video's over, and I'm going to pick it up with this discussion about, are these bridge programs scalable? Can they be replicated and spread across the country to other community colleges, and what would that look like if that happened? So I think the short answer, as you can see on the screen, is yes, they are scalable. You can replicate them, but it's a challenge. And what I want to do is just tell you a little bit about a National Science Foundation project, which we alluded to earlier. Rob and I are involved in, and a few folks on this webinar as participants are engaged in it. And we're trying to, the National Science Foundation is very interested in looking at how you would scale successful programs that are in these what NSF has funded, their Advanced Technological Education Centers, ATE centers. So the project from NSF has been a 3-year project. Bridge to Biotechnology is one of those 13 projects that's being scaled. The BioLink is the national center out of which Rob and I are working. And what we're really trying to do is, in a sense, kind of a laboratory or experiment with how would we take Bridge to Biotechnology, bring it to other community colleges around the country, and what would it take to have them successfully adopt it and to their conditions and their situation. So NSF cares about this a lot because they do invest a lot in ATE programs and centers, and they want to see that investment, or return on that investment, so to speak, and they want to see these successful programs replicated over and over again around the country at other community colleges. But to date, they haven't really seen a lot of that. They've seen their funding of a center and the programs it creates kind of stay locally. So the Synergy project that Rob and I alluded to that we're working on is really a look at how do you scale, how do you spread a successful program like Bridge to Biotechnology and bring it to other sites. So our next slide is a little bit of our early learning about that question, how to scale. And as I mentioned, we have a couple colleges from Georgia actually represented today. Jeff Rapp and Phil Gibson, both Georgia Community College representatives that are working with us currently on this scaling project. And the early, so our early success, the big question is, could you get anyone to even accept your invitation to replicate the project? So the answer to that is yes. 5 colleges, 2 in Georgia, 1 in New York, 1 in Puerto Rico, and the 5th in St. Louis, joined us in June of last year to begin trying to replicate the Bridge to Biotech model. And we have 5 more that will be added in June, just in a month, and so it'll be up to 10. The story, I think, is that letting I would say kind of that second bullet really is our big sum up so far, that adaptation is key. Letting colleges that are working with you adapt the model that you've created is really the key to replicating it and letting it spread. It can, if you let adaptation happen, I think it can spread more rapidly and to other sites, and that they can then figure out what does it take to make it work at their campus or at their community college. But from the point of view of the person who created the model and is trying to spread it, like in this case, City College of San Francisco and Bridge to Biotech, it can be hard because you kind of created this thing, and as Rob could tell you, over 9 years, you worked hard to create a model, and now you've got to let go of that model in some ways and not be in the expert role, but be in a role of kind of facilitating and supporting and providing technical assistance to other sites and allowing them to take the best parts of the model or the ones that are most relevant to them and adapting it to their conditions. So that's really, I think, what we've learned so far. It's been great to work with Phil Gibson and Jeff and the other sites to kind of learn about how to do this. A couple of quick things that we've tried to do to facilitate or to help spread our model is to create a toolkit of the essential elements of Bridge to Biotechnology, and that's online. I don't know if maybe we could type that in the chat, Laura, if it's not on the slide, or maybe it's on the next slide. I can't.
Sure, I have it. I can put that up there.
You got it. Okay, great. And then we've really, as I just was trying to explain, we've created a virtual learning community. We've got 5 colleges all around the country, so we can't meet face-to-face except for once a year. And we're going to, so what we've been doing and what we'll continue to do is kind of a webinar format just like this, what we're doing today, where we meet every 6 weeks or so. We talk about common challenges. We talk about how they're replication efforts and adaptation efforts are going at their site, and we just problem solve things together and try to figure out how to get things working and moving on their campuses. And we're learning a lot from them just as they're learning from us. You can see in the chat box the website the link is there to find out more about the Bridge to Biotech Scale-Up project. It's at the BioLink website. And if you click on that, you can find out more information. And I think that one of the big things that we're trying to figure out is how do we get again, as I started with, National Science Foundation and all of us are interested in how do we get more successful models out there in the world and replicated. And what that produces is more students, typically underprepared students or students that wouldn't typically be able to complete successfully, getting more students through the pipeline and into careers. Back to this whole point that we've got a mismatch between the supply and the demand in the labor market with skilled workers. And one other last point quickly before I end is that we've learned that as these 5 colleges have adopted our bridge model, they've expanded it to beyond biotech. And that's why we wanted to call today's webinar Bridge to Technology. So we have colleges that are calling their program Bridge to Science or Bridge to Nursing or Bridge to STEM. And so this concept of a bridge to biotech has broadened and expanded and evolved into really a bridge to technology model, and we're very excited about that. So with that, I'll turn it back to Rob, and he'll talk a little bit about challenges. And actually, Rob, before you start, I think Phil Gibson asked a quick question. Can we obtain a copy of the presentation? And, I guess the answer was yes. So it's in the chat.
So I think Laura's going to take care of that. Mike's asking a question here. Do you know of any programs that are more broad, such as Bridge to STEM? Oops, yeah, answer my question. Yeah, all right, sorry about that. Okay, so we'll wrap it up here. We'll be done this soon. I know we're going a little over, but we should talk about challenges. It took a good deal of work and funding to do this, so funding is a challenge. Somebody brought this up. We had a major National Science Foundation grant to do this, and so we've also got funding. Put it this way. Let me back up. Our school, after a year or two, institutionalized the Bridge to Biotech program, and because they saw the worth in it, they saw the data we presented, but they never gave any money for recruiting after that. So we've had a hard time finding students, even though the data is compelling. So, like I said like I will say here, there is no golden source for recruiting for us, and so. We've used counselors to help recruit. We've gone to EDD, so we're looking to recruit, or we do recruit laid off workers. And we're a WIA approved program, so we're approved by the Workforce Investment Act, so that if you're on unemployment, you can get your unemployment benefits extended by coming to our program. Of course, flyers all over campus on cars, directly given to people all over the place. I want to hit Gateway Failures last because that's, I think, our most unique thing that you guys can probably replicate if you're looking to recruit too. Posters, we've been using Facebook. Our City College has a Facebook page. We've been using that to some success, and also working with CBOs. Jewish Vocational Services was a partner with us a while back. It didn't work all that well, but it was okay. But we are developing this mostly right here. And so what we're looking at is a lot of students go right into the Gateway chemistry course and 50% fail. But as I showed you guys earlier, 77% or something like that of our students pass. So guess what? If they have some kind of assessment test before the chemistry class that shows your math skills are too low or your basic skills, English, whatever, come to us. Take a semester off and then come back. Also, I don't know if it's true at your schools, but there's a line out the door of students who want to get into those classes because it's a gateway to other allied health jobs and a variety of other STEM jobs. So we're looking to recruit from those sources. And so those are the main challenges for us. And I want to briefly hit two more things before we end. I have this slide that talks about how to develop a program. It shows sort of a flow chart of how you could develop one. Partnerships. We started with partnerships with the local industry, developing block skills, being if you want a cohort model, you can't have a class in the morning and then a class in the afternoon at another time of day. So putting a schedule all together where they're taking courses back to back and won't go anywhere between them is a great thing to do. Having a cohort model is really helpful, really supportive for the students. They learn to rely on each other. They get to know each other really well, and the students and the teachers get to know them and discuss the skills across disciplines really well. Pathways and partners, of course, which direction are they going? Program approval from your school, from the state chancellor's office if that's applicable in your state. Advisory board, of course, right? Identify barriers. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Data collection is really helpful for us. In the first few semesters, we didn't collect that much data, but since then we've been collecting tons, and it's been really helpful for us to find out, well, where are our strong points and weaknesses, and what can we use to make the case to the administration that this is something that's actually working. Outreach and inreach, right? So the inreach I was talking about was going into our current student population. Are there people in our current student population who can pull out and address their basic skills needs and increase their success? And of course, selecting your team, who are the right people to work with this. And the last thing I'll end on this side with is making it visible. You know, we have 90,000 students or more in our school. It's overwhelming to counselors to know all the programs we have. So presentations at Flex Day, in-house trainings as far as telling people what we do have been really helpful to get the word out. And then I want to end with resources because, you know, in this limited time we can only cover so much, but these resources have been really great for us. Laura, I think from MATEC sent out, our moderator sent out a handout to you guys via email with these references as well. Women Employed is a great guide on how to create bridge programs. So is this one. This is from Queda and Salud. These are maybe 80 pages long. They have all kinds of worksheets. They're very guided. They're well done. This is not a program development guide, but this is about contextualized teaching and learning put up by the Career Ladders Project, and it highlights 5 or 6 different programs that use CTL. Some of them are bridge, some of them are not. The Career Ladders Project is here in Oakland. They do great trainings for educators who want to improve the pathway, the success of students and pathways from basic skills to career technical education. We talked about BioLink a little bit, and Laura put it into the chat box. And of course, JFF has some online materials about how to create bridge programs as well. So with that, I'd like to go back to our objectives to retouch on those and sort of review what we've talked about here. So for the first objective, we've talked about goals for college completion in the job market. John provided some labor market analysis to state the case for you know, the fact that we're missing some of these targets in the workforce. And objective 2, we talked about barriers and how bridge models address these barriers. Objective 3, we discussed various bridge programs, and briefly we discussed the challenges. And I think I would love to spend more time on the challenges because as I've been monitoring the chat box while I talk a little bit, yes, there are a lot of challenges that come up to creating programs like this. Even though I think people are compelled by the data, there are big challenges. So it's not easy, but as you can see, the data shows that a lot of these different programs, not just mine, have been very helpful in getting students to reach their goals and to start a career and to have an income and a future that really is successful and solid and beneficial to their life. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Laura now.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much. Great information. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that. So we're going to move on now, and if you have any final questions or comments, this would be a great time to start typing them in the chat box. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for all of those, and before I ask our presenters to answer those final questions, we have one more thing, and that would be our survey. Now this survey, I would really appreciate if everyone can fill this out. It lets us know how we're doing so that we can do a better job in the future and continue doing these webinars for you. It should have popped up on your screen. I'm going to leave it up there for about 2 minutes while we're waiting for all of those questions. So let's go ahead and start looking at these questions. So I have a question from Mike, and Rob and John, I'm just going to throw it out there. Whoever wants to grab it, go ahead, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Mike is asking, I want to start a bridge. Should I first go out and find a collaborator like Rob at my school? And if so, how do I find him or her? Good question.
Go ahead, Rob. You want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Because I would say find the target department first. If you want to go, if you're CTE, go to the chair of the math department or the English department or ESL, transitional studies, with the basic skills people, and ask them, do you have someone who is willing to innovate and has a track record of writing curriculum for a variety of contexts that they don't know about, that they weren't trained in? Because a lot of people tell me, well, wait a minute, Rob, my background is ESL. A lot of people tell me, well, you must have a bachelor's in biology. I don't. And I think, in fact, the people who don't have the degree in your field are a good choice, because they have to learn it and they have to figure out, well, how would students learn it? So I would approach a department chair who knows the faculty in the department well and say, give me someone who's innovative, who has a track record of writing curriculum for a variety of sources and not just teaching from existing textbooks, who has time to partner with other people. I think that's a good start.
Great, thank you. Let's do one more question. How much collaboration did you do, and now 9 years after the inception, after you've been doing this for a while, how much more do you still do?
That's a great question. It took a lot of collaboration in the beginning. We took each other's classes. We didn't go to every single class meeting, but we basically did the assignments. We listened to the lectures. We took the quizzes. We read the textbook, and that was really helpful. So that was a very intensive portion during the first year or two, where we met weekly, where oftentimes I was learning the content of the other course, and we were discussing how to create curriculum on this, because I didn't know they exist. And then now, 9 years later, we meet once or twice a semester, and a lot of discussion is by email, sort of as things come up. So it's a lot easier now, but it was difficult in the beginning.
Okay, thank you. And looks like that's all of our questions. So I'm going to close the survey in 3, 2, 1. Thank you all who did that. And so there were some really great questions. So let's go ahead and give our presenters one more round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
There's one, Laura. There's a question about contacting Rob and I, and I'm happy to answer that if you'd like now. Or okay. Yeah, so as far as trying to contact Rob or myself, I always speak for myself. I mean, I'm open to talking to anyone that's been on the webinar today about what we're doing with our project to scale this Bridge to Biotech or Bridge to Technology program across the country. So let's see. Do we have a last slide with our contact information or not? I can certainly type it in the chat.
You don't, but I did put it on the handout, so everybody should have it in
it's on your handout then. Great. And Rob, I don't know if folks are able to contact you.
No problem.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're open to that. Please feel free.
Great. Well, so that is it. And I had somebody ask earlier, how do I get a recording of this webinar? If you missed any portion of this, or if you'd like to recommend it to others to view it, or as Rob said earlier, if you want to use it to convince your team to take on a bridge program, access the webinar and the slides. You can access those at our website, www.maytechnetworks.org, and just use the keyword search. I'll put it up on the screen here for you, Bridge to Technology. And you should be able to download that here pretty soon. Now, for those of you who are interested in other webinars, you can find a complete schedule of upcoming network webinars on the professional growth pages of our website at www.maytechnetwork.org. So that's going to be up there for you also. And then speaking of professional growth, if you can only attend one conference, so you only have one choice for a conference this year, I highly recommend that you attend the High Impact Technology Exchange Conference. It's going to be in Denver this year, July 23rd through the 26th. So if you are interested and you want to register for it, check out the website on your screen, www.highimpact/TEC.com, and make sure you type in TEC. I keep misspelling that myself incorrectly. .com. Okay, well thank you everyone, and if you attended the live version of this webinar and you'd like a certificate of participation, please email Shannon, shannon.payne@domail.maricopa.edu, and she can make sure that you get one of those certificates. Finally, I'd like to say thank you again today to Rob and John. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody else for joining us today. That concludes our webinar. So have a great day. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody. So Rob, as people are just signing off, I wanted to ask you, did you hear anything today from our audience in the chat that you found interesting?
Yeah, you know, I found that people felt that the data was compelling, but had a lot of questions about funding and collaboration, which is, of course, the big question. If I were a teacher out there, I would feel like, well, yeah, this sounds good, but you know, I don't know about finding all the money to do the extracurricular development. So I'm concerned about that, and I think it's a concern that our like Jeff Rapp and Phil Gibson were on the call, and Andrew Goldfein as well, and they're part of our. They've been involved with our adoption program, and so I have concerns, and you know, maybe at some other time we can address those issues in more detail.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the funding environment in higher education in our community college world is very, very challenging right now. Trying to do something innovative now maybe is harder than ever, because to be innovative, it does take some additional resources, some additional time to collaborate, as you were saying, to contextualize these classes and work in a team with other instructors. So that becomes a challenge, and convincing someone at the administrative level that it's a good investment and that there'll be a return on that investment is one way to do it, and maybe some of the data you've shared today and we've shared is a piece of that, you know, piece of that puzzle. But it's definitely not easy. You know?
And the ironic thing is that as funding gets cut, and as at least in California, the Student Success Task Force is trying to redefine community college goals as for transfer mostly, there's more and more need for bridge programs. So there's more and more need to address those barriers. So I don't see, you know, it's a
conundrum. The need is greatest, and we have the fewest resources available to make it happen. So yeah, we got to be very creative, I think, is one and maybe we can get National Science Foundation to keep funding Synergy. We can spread it and scale it more and more.
Right. You know, I think with us, we didn't exactly reinvent the wheel in the beginning, but we didn't have other organizations and other schools to mentor us in doing this. So we had 2 schools peer-reviewed our curriculum, Santa Ana Community College in Austin Community College in Texas, and that was helpful. And then they adopted, and with limited success because we didn't provide program practices to them. We just gave them the curriculum. It was all about curriculum. So, you know, I think, you know, it'd be great if more people knew about ways to get training and not just curriculum, but program practices and other things as well.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Great job.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Hey, John and Rob, it's Mike. Just wanted to say thank you again.